Okay, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning again, depending on where everyone is today. And thank you for joining. What we want to do today is take a little bit different approach on a topic that dominates the audit profession today. Whether you're an internal auditor or an external auditor working on specialized areas such as fraud examinations, the word and the topic of data analytics always seems to come up. It's front and center. We've all been to conferences. Recently, the IIA has had a big one in New York. We've been to the AICPA, ACFE conferences. And you know, in any conference you go to today, data analytics are always there front and center. So, but when you go to these conferences, most of the sessions on data analytics, they focus really on one or two areas, and most of it's on the benefits, right? Et cetera. You know, why you need a data analytics program, what the benefits are. You know, I think we all get that, of why we need that. We've probably all been exposed to all that. So what happens, companies go out and they purchase the tools because that's what the industry says we're supposed to do, all right? But it can be, once you get the tools, it can be very, very frustrating on how do you really unlock those benefits that you've heard about, all right? You get the tool in-house, people start to use it, and a lot of times that I've seen, they just give up. They get very frustrated because they really don't know what to do with the tool once they get it. And so they give up, and basically the software goes back, sits on a shelf until the next person tries to, you know, use the challenge of data analytics to unlock those benefits. Well, you know, I'm here today to give you a little motivation and give you a little excitement to tell you don't give up. Right? We're going to kind of go through some ways to really unlock those benefits. So when you do get these tools, you have a chance to succeed with it, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what are the things you really can do with these tools and eliminate some of the frustration. So a little bit about the agenda then today. We're going to talk about who is NASDAQ, about my company, what we do. Then we're going to get into that frustration. We're going to talk about the barriers to using the analytics. What is causing the frustration among all of you folks out there today? All right, and then we'll get into the meat of the presentation, which is really how we're going to increase and expand the use of data analytics. And that's the key to breaking down the barrier. The more we can use it, the more those barriers come crashing way down. And we're going to talk about some conventional ways to do it and some unconventional ways to do it. Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit more later on near the end about the skills required, because that is one of the frustrations, people having the right skills to actually succeed with some of the analytical tools. And then the barrier, sometimes not for everyone, is getting management support, actually having them go out in the first place to allow you to purchase the funds, give you the time for training so you can implement a successful analytical program in your company. And then another thing we'll talk about is how do you measure success with an analytical tool? You know, how do we know if folks are using it effectively in their audits? And then finally, we'll kind of summarize it all with some takeaways and benefits to your organization. And then I guess we have some time, as Franco said at the end, for some questions and answers. So please submit as many questions as you like. I'll do my best to answer what we can with the time we have left. And again, I hope you find the presentation informative. So who is NASDAQ? I'm sure everybody's heard of NASDAQ. We're on the news, seems to be every night. You hear about us, you know, but we're more than the index. We are not we are the stock exchange. Okay, we hear about the NASDAQ Composite and the New York, you know, Stock Exchange Composite every night. But you probably didn't know a lot about NASDAQ. We're really more than a stock exchange. We operate, you know, besides regulatory business, we have a lot of other type of business. We're really a financial technology company today. We operate multiple exchanges all around the world, clearing houses. We're obviously headquartered in New York. We're in Maryland. I'm talking to you from Rockville, Maryland today, right outside of Washington, D.C. We're in Philadelphia. We have offices all over in the Nordics. We have all the Nordic exchanges in the Baltic countries. We just have an acquisition in Canada. So we're truly a global company. And again, we list companies who want to raise capital on the financial markets. We'll list with the NASDAQ to raise capitals and do IPOs. We cover multiple asset classes, equities, options, commodities. Again, that's our traditional business of being a stock exchange. But really, when you look at it over the last several years, we've really, as most exchanges, have morphed into a financial technology company. And those highlighted ones you see on the slide are corporate solutions and market technology. We have many business lines now that sell investor-related products to our listed companies. And so when you look at a webinar or a shareholder meeting to release earnings, a lot of times that's powered by NASDAQ products and solutions. We also sell our trading system technology around the world to multiple exchanges, broker-dealers, banks, alternative trading venues, etc. One of our biggest clients, for example, is Borsa Istanbul in Turkey. So we're really have moved from just being a stock exchange to really a truly global solutions providing company. Internal audit-wise, we're about 20 folks worldwide. As I mentioned, some of the offices. We've just expanded to Vilnius in Lithuania, so we have a team out there. And we use a variety of analytical tools that are in our toolbox. I'm not really going to talk about specific tools today, but I'm going to talk about how to use these tools, how to use your toolbox effectively to meet audit objectives. So being really a diverse company allows us to use analytics in a multitude of ways. And I'm going to show you today some of those ways that we use it, as I said earlier, conventionally and unconventionally, which helps to break down some of the barriers. Again, we know analytics are important. As I said earlier, we've all heard about it, we've read about it. But our senior management, audit committee, board of directors, they also read the same material we do, right? And so we get these questions. The question can trickle down to the audit teams, and I'm sure you've heard this. So, I hear, hey, Lenny, what are we doing with data analytics at our company? The board or the audit committee wants to know. We often do not have a good answer for them. Right? No one likes to make excuses to top executives. We don't come across sometimes as very enthusiastic or convincing of how we're using analytics effectively. So, today, hopefully, we'll be able to pick up some techniques and things you can bring back to your companies to expand the use of analytics. So the next time you get this question from your board or audit committee, you'll have a better answer for them. The frustration. Okay, so we have the tool now, and it's frustrating, but it's natural. This is new for every person who hasn't been used to data analytics. They're going to encounter this, right? And we see this with almost every new member of our team. It's a natural reaction. So the question is, what is causing the frustration? There's a variety of reasons for that. And I've listed some of them here for you that causes the barriers, the frustration. First is lack of technology skills. Somebody says, I'm not a programmer. This is too technical for me. I think this is a technical tool. I don't know how to use it. Second one, I don't have any experience, right? I've never done this before. So that's, again, another thing we hear. The third is, well, I got it. What do I do with it? How do I incorporate the analytical tool into the audit? Right? How do I use it in the audit to be effective? The next one is probably one of the biggest challenges and one of the barriers. Once you get through the first couple is, well, how do I get the data? Where does the data come from? The source data. And that's always one of the biggest challenges and frustrations in analytics. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on of some ideas to get that data into the tool in a little bit easier way. So hopefully, some of the things you've already heard probably sounds familiar, some of the things that you've encompassed in your organization. Let's get to it. Let's see how we can take on these challenges and break down those barriers and reduce the frustration. Okay, so how do we eliminate some of the frustration? Again, first thing, can't ignore it, right? So we do have to tackle this head on. Okay, so here are some of the ways that, at a high level, that I would suggest that you do when you want to eliminate barriers to using data analytics. The first thing is, don't focus on the tool all at once. A lot of people get the tool and they start figuring out. They look at the tool, and that's probably a mistake. The second thing is the first thing they should do is the second bullet, and I have it in bold because that's the key. is focus on the audit objectives. What is the business issues or problems you're trying to solve, right? If you focus on that, the rest of it will come. So we're going to focus a lot of the presentation on that second big bullet in bold. So again, you want to think big, and you'll obviously look at the tool and look at all the different functionality it has and the great things you can do with these different tools. But yeah, but do that for a little bit, but then don't focus on the tool. Focus on what you want to accomplish in the audit, right? Think big, start small, right? With some easy out-of-the-box solutions. You get some quick wins. We've all heard this in different parts of our lives or our profession. Same thing with analytics. Today, with a lot of products, you can use out-of-the-box functionality that's easy, for somebody to pick up, that the concepts that most people are familiar with. Now, we use IDEA as one of our main audit analytic tools here, and if you look at a tool like IDEA, it has a lot of these things built into the tool itself. Profiling of the data. I mean, with some simple clicks, you can get statistics on all kinds of data of, average, null values, zeros, negatives. Right away, by just using simple things, you've got a success, right? You've eliminated some frustration. Somebody, oh man, look at this. I didn't know that these negative numbers were in these fields. So there's a red flag for you to start looking at. Analysis like summarization of data, duplicate key checks, gap analysis, and Benford's law. If you're not sure who Benford was, he was a mathematician in the 1900s. I'd suggest you Google him and see what he's done. We don't have a lot of time to go into it today, but it's kind of interesting. Basically, it's patterns and numbers in transactions, and it tells you a lot of different things. So again, these are simple things. They're easy out-of-the-box functionality that one can use and to eliminate some of the frustration. Again, some more ideas and concepts. I talked a little bit about this. Some small success using analytics builds your confidence, shows its value to your team, to management, and it starts to, again, little by little, reduce that frustration, right? A lot of the things I just talked about you're already familiar with many of these concepts, right? Profiling, summarization. Again, so a lot of the analytical tools today are a combination of functions like Excel, like Microsoft Access, but they have a lot more to it that ensure data integrity. So again, start with what you're familiar with, with the analytics and with your data. Again, focus on the data, focus on the audit, don't focus on the tool. Okay, so let's get into these audit objectives, right? As I said, focusing on the audit objectives, right? So this is the key barrier that I think if you can overcome, you're on your way to very successful use of data analytics. I have two key sets of words in here I want you to look at. The first is creative thinking, and the second is business and technology. All right, so creative thinking is using the tool in unconventional ways, right? Most of the time we think of using it in business terms, and that's the second phrase. But the word technology, as you'll see, I have some examples later on that you can use analytics to achieve, help IT audits, of technology audits. It doesn't always have to be for accounting-related or business-related applications. It can be used for technology applications as well. And on the creative thinking side, which we do a lot of at NASDAQ, we've used it for non-business and non-technology applications. And I'm going to show you a couple of really good examples that you can use. So I want you to start thinking about coming up with solutions for data analytics using creative thinking. And I think if you start thinking a little bit more creatively, you're going to find a lot more use you can use the tools for. So we have a picture here of Lewis Carroll. So folks who don't know who Lewis Carroll was, he wrote Alice in Wonderland. And I like this saying, because I think it goes back to, you got to know what you want to do with a tool. A tool, analytics, people think they're magic wands. Oh, we got this analytical tool, it's going to solve all our problems. It's not a magic wand. That's a misconception. You really have to know what you want to do with the tool. And that gets to what Lewis Carroll says. You've got to know where you're going. You got to have a game plan to use analytics, right? What do you want to achieve? What is our goal in this audit? What do we want to know about the data, right? So we're focusing again on the objectives. We're focusing on the data, and then the tool comes into play after that. I'll give you a quick story that I think is relevant here in analytics. In NASDAQ, basically, on an audit we used data analytics in a billing application to look for missed billings in a company. And when I showed it to the actual users, when we portrayed our audit results, they were really impressed with the tool and some simple analytics we did to just identify some potential missed billings. So what they did is they liked it so much they actually went out and bought the tool themselves in the business unit and went out and started to use the same techniques and even more with the analytics, and basically have come up with over several $1 million of missed billings that they're going to use to they're going to recover. So the tool obviously paid for themselves. But the point is here, they knew where they wanted to go. They wanted to use analytics to look at missed billings. And so they went out and did it, and it really paid off many times over in multi-million dollars of billing recoveries. So again, this was something that not even an audit. So from audit, driving enthusiasm and motivation in other parts of the company within the business units, showing, data analytics can even work, it's not just an audit tool, it can be used in any parts of your organization. So again, this is some of the things we've been talking about. Analytics are tools. They're not the end result, right? The results are what we want to learn from our data. Okay. So again, start with the audit objectives, and we're going to talk about some of the specific audit objectives on the next page. But there's a couple things that I wanted to highlight on this slide that I think are important. On the investment, it pays off, but it does require perseverance. I mean, these are some of the benefits that, again, you've heard in your traditional analytic presentations. But there's one that you can read some of them, obviously, yourself. But the last one is interesting, and I wanted to talk about that one because that's something that I've learned through a lot of audits with analytics. You start down one path with data analytics looking for something, but it leads you to a different problem. So you start looking for missed billings, but you might end up finding data integrity issues with the data. And let me give you a quick example of that. At NASDAQ, we have qualification standards to list the company on an exchange. So when I did a quick audit of our listings qualification area to see if companies were listed that shouldn't have been listed based on the data, used analytics. So when I ran some examples, and I'll show you a little bit later some of the specifics, but I found that a company came out and said, hey, based on the criteria, this company should not have been listed. And then talking with the users, what we found out was that the data was correct at the time of listing, but then somebody went in later that unchanged the piece of the data that was used to qualify it. So that data should have been locked down at the time of listings and should not have been allowed to change. So what that showed was it said that there's a control issue in locking down of data or some data integrity issues. So again, I was started down one path to see that making sure that only companies that met our criteria were listed, but what I found was other control issues. So that's one of the great things about analytics. You start down one path, but it can let you uncover concerns in other areas. So again, it's an expanded use of the tool here. So let's look at some of the audit objectives I talked about earlier. So again, you're focusing on the audit objectives, not on the tool. And so by And I'm going to keep repeating that because that's a common theme I want everyone to take away today. So again, analytics helps with, these are the things you want to know about your data. So if you come in and you go, I want to validate the accuracy of some of my data. I want to look at it a different way. I want to slice and dice it, to just visualize things. Looking for strange item, exception testing, a little bit of what I talked about earlier. Looking for null values, zeros, negative numbers. There should not be any zeros or negatives in certain fields. Or blanks. I bring in a lot of data, I see blanks. I go, why is it blank? Right? And so, that's a red flag right in itself. Completeness and gaps. One of the biggest things we do with analytics is matching, comparing two files together, making sure you got consistent data across different databases. For example, you have a product database. I want to make sure all my products were billed. That's a great use of the analytics. It's an audit objective, right? Completeness of accuracy of billing or payments or invoicing. It's simple audit objectives. But again, if you focus on that, then you go into the tool and say, okay, what part of the tool can I use to accomplish that? If you go think about it like that, it's less frustrating, really gets you started, and it really helps you achieve success. Edit checking, compliance testing, I'm going to talk about that in a little while. How we use a lot of that at NASDAQ. Then a lot of tools are becoming very sophisticated. Fuzzy logic, relationships, when you're looking for certain keywords, you're not sure exactly what you're looking for, the tools are there to help you with that. So some of the uses of it, traditional business analytics. This slide should look familiar since this is an ACFE webinar. Most of us think of analytics, again, in terms of traditional business cases, accounts payable, T&E, sales, payroll, cash applications, ratios on financial statements. I mean, this is from the fraud tree, occupational fraud, the different areas. Again, it's familiar. Most of us probably focus on these areas, but we're not going to focus on that in this presentation. Again, because we're here to think creatively, we're here to think outside the box. Again, that's the challenge. Think outside the box. Again, I challenge everybody today on this call, and I guess it's several hundred folks. Go back to your organizations and think outside the box. What are the ways? Think of some non-standard ways or applications that we can use data analytics and break down some of these barriers. So the first area that I'm going to talk, and I mentioned this earlier, was the technology applications. Right? These are three areas that you can use analytics for that you might not have thought of. You log files, access reviews, and actually management of files on the network. And I'm going to talk about each one of these in a minute and give you some examples of things you could take back and try. Email logs. Again, some of the things, these are just ideas, they're bullets, they're just ways you can go in, pull a log file, and do some of these analytical tests on it. I'm sure this data is available. Mostly email system has archive emails and logs. And you'll have to, obviously, if you're not a technical person, this is where you'd have to go work with some folks in your more of your technology teams, IT support teams. But again, if you know what you're looking for, and they'll get it to you. I mean, this is part of that source data issue. The data's out there. You just have to be creative and get to the right people and tell them what you want and in what format, and they'll get it to you. Hasn't had that much trouble getting it once you can articulate exactly what you need to these folks. So you can see some of the different things that you can do. I mean, the slides are available. You can get a copy of these and pick the ones that you think would be most valuable to your organization. With cybersecurity being such a hot topic today, and companies, really on the lookout, and this is really a good use of analytics. I'm sure you have a lot of intrusion detection stuff at your companies, but again, it wouldn't be a bad independent check to see, as an auditor, if you can find something through some just simple analytics of your email system. All right, the next topic, another use of technology, analytic access rights. All right, again, network logins is a key thing from the application side today. It's part of Sarbanes-Oxley compliance. We do a lot of, but again, you can go into logs and network files and take a look at access rights. You can take a look again, different possibilities, passwords. Again, passwords that haven't been changed, that should be changed. Dormant accounts, who has access to certain directories that shouldn't have access. Privileged access is a great one. You run through log files. Again, you can all do this manually, and everybody can do it. But if you use analytics, you can and get this set up in a more of a productionalized area. You can show extreme value to your organization. Again, it's analytics, and once you get the file in, you can summarize it. You can do all kinds of different tests on it, and again, that's another way you can be successful thinking outside the box. The next area is system logs. Again, all applications have kind of system logs. So you can go out and look at when people are logging into the system, who's logging in, when they log in, what time they log in. Again, summarizing network addresses, IP addresses. Again, just different things that you can go into any system log. There's probably lots of logs out there in different applications. So again, I would heavily suggest you go back and look at some of these logs that you have in your company. Pick the ones that you think are the most high risk, most critical, and try and do a couple. Take one. Just take one log and try and get it into an analytical tool. Get the data, and then see. But again, before you get it in, what do you want to do? You should know. This is what I want to know. I want to know everybody's logging in on the weekend. Again, that's what you should focus on. That data, then get it into the tool, and then do some kind of analysis, summarized by employee, by computer ID, things like that. File access and management. This is an area, again, on the network. There's a lot of analytical tools out there that can go in and monitor every time somebody touches a file, and what time they went in, how many times somebody's gone on out to the network to actually look at something. So again, you can know when sensitive files and emails are open or modified. So again, there are definitely good tools out there. A tool I know about is Varonis, good tool that does this type of thing. We use that in the company to kind of monitor access. Folks really don't even know it's being monitored. But if there ever was a data breach, it's a good way to go to see who's touched this file. I'm going to move on now to a different area, and this is an area, one of my favorite areas, and is regulatory. It's rule book validation. This is really thinking outside the box, and this is what I'm going to show you two ideas that we've used in analytics. And the first is rule book validation. As I mentioned earlier, to list on the NASDAQ and remain listed, you've got to pass certain qualitative and quantitative standards, right? And so we have all that data for our 25 or 2,600 listed companies, right? And so what we do is we basically can run analytics against the rule book to see if a company should be listed or remain listed, right? How do you know, and things like that. How do you know your rules are being enforced? So anybody in the regulatory space that has compliance, great use of analytics. Take your rule books, right? And I'll show you a simple example. It's not that difficult to reprogram some of your rules and analytics. Bring in the data, do an independent comparison, take your results, check it against your organization's results, and then reconcile any differences. So I really think this is truly thinking outside the box, using analytics, to do regulatory type of things. And here's an example I was talking about. This is one of our rules. Our rule book is public. All our rule books, and they're complicated. So there's a very snippet of a rule that to continue to be listed on NASDAQ. You can see all the different criteria. There's different financial. These are more quantitative measures. So it's only a sliver of it. By taking that, what we just saw, basically this is basically that rule into basically an analytical form. All right, it's a single function. It's not a difficult thing to do, but you can see with a simple, basically that's a compound if statement. I can test data and see if it passes or fails very simply against certain criteria. Now you cannot reprogram the entire rulebook. That's a bit too much. But what you can do is take key pieces of the rule, do most of it, and get some basic results to start working with people. Again, once you know what you want to do, the analytical piece is sometimes the easiest part. So this is not a difficult implementation. It's just knowing what rules I want to check and what you need to remain listed on the company, and then I know basically what I'm trying to achieve. So again, that was the rule book validation. I know I'm going through a lot. I'm trying to, make sure we finish on time. But another area is corporate ethics. This is another great area. This is when you should be really thinking outside the box. We use analytics here to ensure our FCPA compliance. And folks who don't know that's Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. It was enacted in 1977, and basically the act states it's unlawful to bribe government officials to secure business. It sounds simple, right? But you'd be surprised of how many potential violations are out there on it. So what we do is we've used data analytics, again, in a little bit of a non-traditional way to ensure we have a good FCPA compliance program in place. Again, this is a fraud organization. Well, this is focused fraud analytics. FCPA is fraud, but it's focused on anti-corruption and bribery. So again, you can never identify corruption straight up, but the data analytics will give you red flags, and that's what you really want out of data analytics. It gives you some really good red flags for follow-up. So why is this important to you, everybody on the call? It's very important because the government is scrutinizes this more than ever before. They basically are looking at this illegal activity, worldwide, and you can pick up any newspaper, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and there's always some article about bribery or corruption out there. So it's definitely a hot topic, and companies, you have to show you have more than just a manual, a book. Oh yeah, here's our FCPA compliance program. This is what we do. We send out, people certify, they take some training, but you really have to show you have a much more proactive program. And data analytics is really a great way to assist in demonstrating this proactive monitoring of transactions for corruption. Again, this is thinking outside the box, using analytics in a different way. And by doing that, you're reducing frustration. You're breaking down the barriers to people using it in a company because you found some good ways of really using it. Again, why is it important to you? Again, just to show you, if you don't have a good program, this is what can happen to you, right? This is just, in the last several years, the top 10 fines that the Department of Justice has come in and fined programs for not having really good foreign corrupt practices compliance program. Again, just because you have a program doesn't mean you'll get off scot-free, but if you can show the government that you do have a robust program, you have, proactive analytics to support that you are monitoring transactions, you have a much better chance of getting a much lesser fine, a reduced fine. Okay? So again, use analytics to help with any, things like non-compliance or, bribery act, foreign corrupt practices, again, regulatory uses of analytics. So again, very quickly, how do we use analytics at NASDAQ? For our foreign corrupt practices, we basically use the analytics to do these 4 areas in our program that we've set up, and I'll just take you through some of it real quickly. I've done some other presentations totally on this, but and my mouse will not move forward. Let's see here. Okay, so one of the ways you can use analytics, again, in Foreign Corrupt Practices, coming up with a scoring is basically you can use it to summarize spend and entertainment and gifts, and then that's what Foreign Corrupt Practice is all about, right? People bribing officials. Well, how do they bribe officials? They basically can get paid through T&E and through AP to cover their bribes. So again, by using analytics, you can go in and take a look at these two different applications. See if you see any potential duplicate payments, the same person putting an invoice in and also getting approved through the T&E. You can look through expenses. You can do searches for certain keywords in there. Again, another thing I haven't read, put a focus on sales agents. Agents are doing work on your behalf, and you are liable for your actions of agents, especially in countries that have high, corruption indexes. And so again, analytics can help you pinpoint some of this and get you, give you some vital information. The second thing is part of our Foreign Corrupt Practices analytics. We use prohibited list screening. We use a company called WorldCheck. It's a service, kind of screens vendors, right, based on over 500 different sanctions lists that you go through. Again, to give you some scores back, and we use that as part of our risk factors. Again, you can use analytical tools. If you don't have a service like a WorldCheck, you can use, there's a lot of this data is publicly available on the internet through different websites, different sanctions lists. So again, you can use analytics to maybe build your own type of WorldCheck screening tool. Again, thinking outside the box, different ways you can use, we use these tools. So what we do then is basically we have a scoring with the analytics that based on a predefined scoring methodology. We basically take all those things I kind of was telling you about, and we put it into a methodology of scoring. We take the spend. These are the four things we use, the relationship type. Again, you have all this data available in your company, right? How much each we're spending with each vendor. Certain vendors are more prone to high risk and bribery than others. Folks who sell professional services are going to be at a higher risk of bribery than somebody who's supplying coffee to your organization. So we give some score there. What country that people work on, we look at the CPI index and things like that, the corruption index. So that's something you want to take into account. And then the WorldCheck screening, as I mentioned, is also there. So again, these are just some samples of things you can do. You can basically weight each of those areas I talked about, and then come up with a possible score. This is how we did some of it. And then basically, based on the scoring, you pinpoint, what additional work you want to do. But again, this is using analytics. The point here, everyone, is it's using analytics in a different way. A little bit of the non-traditional way to use your data analytics, to package it together as a program. As you can tell, I'm not focused on the tool. I'm focused on the audit objectives. Here it's regulatory and compliance. But if you know what you want to do here, then go back in the tool. The functionality to do all this is in all of these tools that most of you see today. And then the last piece, again, this is this you can bring in your traditional accounts payable analytics that you've probably seen these. A lot of you probably do this. You get a lot more into your traditional, business test. But again, you can factor in as much or as little as you want. So say some other, again, getting back to our theme again of, break down the barriers. I think some of the other keys to success, you can, with analytics, you can productionalize these things instead of it's not just a one-time thing. There's macros, there's scripts. So once you do it once, you can set it up so you can run these over and over again. with just refreshing your data. The next one, and then visualization. I think management loves this type of stuff. All the tools today have really enhanced visualization tools. Picture's worth 1,000 words. It's built into the tools. So again, try and use these visualization tools, parts of the tool, but again, focus. What do I want to show my management? Do I want to show them some charts? Do I want to show them some graphs? And then go in the tool. And all the work you've done, you can easily put this into some kind of picture. It drills down into the detailed data. But again, I want you to remember, one of the keys is iterative process. You're not going to succeed necessarily the first time you get in there and you try all the things I've been talking about. You will be frustrated, likely so, but keep at it. Don't give up. And then, it's iterative. One set of results is going to provide you additional questions, and it's really going to open up a lot of doors for you. You'll be surprised of the type of things you're going to find and the great analysis you're going to do by just, keeping at it and focused on your audit objectives. I want to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to go through a couple other areas with you that are important, in helping you break down those barriers. Auditing continues to evolve. The audit profession is a lot different than it was several years ago. I think we have a new breed of auditor that's coming on board, and I think that analytical skill sets are something that you need to consider. Yeah, traditional audit skills, are still important on how to audit. But when you are looking for, recruiting or folks who want to move into audit, or you're trying to recruit some internal folks, these are the type of things that type of skills that really, I think, make it important to be successful in today's audit. Number one, you're really in critical thinking. Again, if you can find folks who understand the business, it's easier to teach them the tools and the audit, how to audit. But if they know those businesses, that's again helps you really know what kind of audit objectives to go out. There are a lot of tools out there. People with ERP systems like PeopleSoft, SAP, these data extract query tools are already built into a lot of these, where you can run a query in PeopleSoft and get that data out. And I talked about that earlier, the source data. A lot of the applications today have really good extract capabilities. So get with some of the folks, and they're not that difficult. Go in there and try and run some of your own queries. And you'll be surprised that it's much easier to get the data out of these tools than you think. And then once you do that, then you get it into the tool and you're off and running on it. So, again, you want people who are willing to grow their skill sets. It really is a necessity for, I think, a lot of careers moving forward. Again, people are willing to put the time in. It does take time, and everybody has to still get the audit done, and they can't spend all their time on analytics. But, I think a little bit extra time and work will pay off. So these are the type of things I would, if I was looking for some new auditors for my team, this is the type of things I'd be looking for. And finally, the last thing I want to just briefly talk about is gaining management support. That's a barrier in itself, right? Sometimes we need the money, we need the time, we need the support from management to let us, go ahead and spend a little bit extra time to get these analytics work. So we really got to show them that, this is worth it. This is a barrier that we got to, let us work on this, and it's going to prove dividends. And these are some of the arguments you can make, if you get this question coming up. As you can tell, information is complex. It really manually today, it's tough to search through hundreds of thousands of documents. You really do need some kind of automated analytical tools. It really takes some of the subjectiveness and biases out if you can, show management that we're going to be much better off if we make an investment in analytics. And it supplements, and again, it's not to replace traditional auditing. It supplements traditional auditing. Some of the things we talked about. Once we get it going and we productionalize it, the data analytics can then grow into a continuous monitoring or a continuous auditing program. So maybe down the road you can, work on less headcount because we've got a really good analytical program in place that let the computer do the work, and then the auditors can spend their time really evaluating the results and deciding what to do with those red flags to basically move forward. Again, it reduces frustration when you can say, hey, look, these red flags from our analytics can be used to really drill down on root causes, develop targeted scopes for other things moving forward. Lasting standards have changed. Again, data analytics is really not, it's more of a requirement than a recommendation, as I'm saying today. You can look at different standards, and I think you'll see more and more in the standards proficiency is critical. Auditors really need to have sufficient knowledge of technology-based audit to do their work. So, again, how do we get it in? How do we get it? One of the barriers is how do we get it into our work? So I would say, one of the things to reduce some of the frustration is get it up front, get it into your methodology. Require the auditor to basically address how am I going to use analytics before field work on every audit. So sit down with them and say, okay, what are you going to do with analytics? What do we want to know about our data? And just have a good discussion up front with everybody, and then from there, I think you'll be able to really expand the use of it. And then I know the last thing is kind of tie analytics to compensation as a motivation. Give some maybe monetary incentive if somebody can really show that they've done a really good job on a certain project and they've used analytics. And more, as we all know, money is a great motivator. So, not saying a great part of someone's salary or bonus, but you may want to consider tying some compensation to analytics. So the last thing I'll just leave you with is we covered a lot today. I know we went through a lot of different topics in a short amount of time, but I wanted to leave you with a couple of key thoughts, and the first is really think outside the box, right? Think creatively, focus on your audit objectives, really not the tool, right? If you do that, a lot of these benefits come into play in addition to reducing the frustration. You're basically going to have a better defense with regulators, as I talked about, from FCPA. Lets people know you're watching when you can go proactively to follow up with things based on data that you're doing. And it lets you focus on job-specific training with anti-corruption, for example. By doing the analytics, we can go back to different parts of the company and say, you know what, we've seen some misuse of the T&E or your corporate card. We need some better training there. So again, think outside the box. Be creative, and I think you'll see some of those barriers come crashing down. So, I'll leave you with that. And again, if you commit to analytics, it's really worth it's well worth the investment. So, Franco, I'll turn it back to you. I know we have about 10 minutes left for some Q&A.